Chapter 16. Who is Divine Power? You are Fang Han, right? Very well. You have a quota. Go in for the assessment, turn left. The assessment hall is over there. All other candidates have gathered there. Fang Han waited at the gate, having not the slightest idea what the assessing officers inside Taxian Yuan had discussed among themselves. He still waited patiently. Around half an hour later, a young Taoist came out, opened the gate and allowed him to enter, which made Fang Han heave a sigh of relief. The moment he stepped across the threshold of Taxian Yuan, a feeling suddenly rose in his heart. His identity and status were already different. Indeed, even an outer sect disciple of Yuhua sect would immediately become a regional lord if he returned to the Great Li Dynasty. After entering Taxian Yuan, following the direction he got, he turned left, walked through a winding corridor 3.5 to 4 kilometers long, past rockeries and lakes, and suddenly arrived at a vast main hall. All those noble princes and aristocratic children who had entered earlier were gathered in this hall. The hall was 3,000 paces wide in both length and breadth, able to accommodate 10,000 people. Anyone standing inside would feel extremely tiny. Especially at the deepest end of the hall, there was a pitch-black gate, and from within, a pair of crimson eyes faintly stared at all people, exuding an aura of ferocity, dominance, cruelty, and bloodlust. The entire hall felt just like a hall built for sealing evil demons. What is inside that gate? Fang Han was startled. He sensed that whatever was inside the gate at the far end of the hall was definitely not anything benign. Could it be the divine power puppet? Just like him, all those noble and aristocratic young men also looked at the crimson eyes deep in the dark gate out of curiosity. Thud, thud, thud. Several chief assessing officers walked in, and instantly an oppressive pressure fell over the entire hall. Good grief, every one of them is a master at the same level as my master. They probably have powerful magic tools refined with blood sacrifice, even spirit tools on their bodies. Looking at the officers that appeared, Fang Han could tell from his intuition that they were experts of the same rank as Bai Haichan, peak level of the mortal body realm. The faces of those noble and aristocratic children also grew solemn. A master at the 9th level of mortal body, spirit resonance, or the 10th level, divine transformation, could serve as a border governor, national preceptor, or grand marshal of troops in any empire. Humph. Today you have come to attend the initiation assessment of our Yuhua sect, and I assume you all know what the assessment content is. It is a single divine power puppet. As long as you defeat this puppet, you will pass the assessment and officially become an outer sect disciple of our Yuhua sect. But I guess you only know the name Divine Power Puppet, and have no idea what material our Yuhua sect elders used to refine this puppet. I must explain it to you here, otherwise you will die without even knowing how you died, one assessing officer said coldly. The original form of the Divine Power Puppet is a subterranean devil. They are bloodthirsty, brutal, and immensely powerful. After our Yuhua sect captured it, we wiped away its consciousness and refined it into a puppet. It retains endless divine strength and its brutal nature. It is nothing but a killing weapon. What? Divine Power Puppet is refined from a subterranean devil? No wonder those princes who failed the assessment before came back trembling, only saying the Divine Power Puppet is extremely formidable. All these aristocratic children burst into heated discussion. Fang Han did not know what a subterranean devil was, but by instinct he sensed that the Divine Power Puppet was definitely no easy opponent. It was probably far more ferocious than even the fiercest tiger or savage beast. So you probably think the path of immortality is all about soaring on cranes, wandering carefree, with light clouds and gentle breeze. Seeing the group of children chattering, an assessing officer's expression grew even colder. The path of immortality is a road of no return. To cultivate your mortal body, you must have a strong state of mind to open your spiritual potential, cultivate the divine ability realm, and step onto the path of immortality. Let me tell you this first, the path of immortality is not about light clouds, gentle breeze, or carefree wandering on cranes. The path of immortality requires a fearless heart. To slaughter 10,000 demons, inner demons and outer demons, all must be slain. It is a path that cuts through thorns and brambles. It is a path where you use the naked sword of the Tao to slay illusions and seek your true self. It is never a peaceful path. It is a path where you fight for your very life against heaven itself. Now, use your strength to slay this outer demon, and take the first step on your long immortal path. Lu Kang, you are the legitimate son of Marquis Yuan of the Great Li Dynasty. Step into the center first to take the assessment. Yes. That aristocratic young man holding the purple jade fan, who had earlier complained about not being allowed to bring servants into Yuhua sect, heard his name called and strode to the center of the hall in a few steps, facing the dark gate and that pair of blood-red eyes. The path of immortality is not gentle clouds and breeze. It is a path cutting through thorns and fighting for life against heaven. What a fine saying. The naked sword of the Tao slays illusion to seek true self. That is what immortality really is. It is never carefree. How can there be such a good thing in the world that you can become an immortal and master divine power just by living an easy, happy life? You must go through all sorts of hardship and thousands of trials to achieve it. Fang Han's heart was stirred by the assessing officer's words, and a boiling heat rose through his whole body. So this man is the legitimate son of Marquis Yuan. Marquis Yuan is an extremely prestigious figure in our dynasty. He commands 80,000 troops and guards the border. His power is even greater than the Fang clan. Fang Han had heard of a figure like Marquis Yuan, Grand Marshal of 80,000 troops. When he was a servant in the Fang manor, the legitimate son of such a man was naturally high above, completely out of his reach. Now they were actually taking the same assessment together. Life really was like a dream. Open the gate. Seeing young Marquis Lu Kang standing in the center, the several assessing officers exchanged a glance, waved their hands in unison, and a streak of sharp light shot out from each of their palms, flying into the dark gate. Crash! The mist that had sealed the dark gate scattered in an instant. A demonic shadow 1.5 men tall leaped out and landed on the ground, its ferocity and violence stunning the entire room. Fang Han got a clear look at the shadow's appearance in a glance. It was human-shaped. Its whole body was pitch black, its skin like a hard black shell covered in scales. 2 fleshy horns bulged on its head. It had a wide mouth full of tusks. Its hands ended in hooked claws. Its eyes were blood-red. The muscles under its scales bulged in blocks like steel plates, and the slightest movement of strength made its bones crackle with popping sounds. Most notably, this divine power puppet had extremely long legs, full of explosive jumping powered. Roar! The moment the divine power puppet was released, its demonic might burst forth ferociously. It moved as fast as a cheetah, its long muscles giving it immense strength. A black shadow flashed, and its 5 claws swiped down at Lu Kang's head. Rip! Lu Kang seemed stunned by the puppet's violent ferocity. His movement slowed just a fraction. As he dodged, the fabric on his shoulder was torn open, leaving 5 long bloody gashes. If he had not dodged fast enough, his head would have been torn through and he would have died instantly. Ah! Seeing how dangerous the situation was, many of the aristocratic disciples present cried out in alarm. Even Fang Han felt his heart race. The divine power puppet was nothing short of a zombie demon. An ordinary master at the divine power realm would probably be killed by it in an instant. In an instant, the divine power puppet chased Lu Kang all around the central arena of the hall. Every strike aimed to disembowel, pierce the heart, slice the guts, or crush the skull. The central area of the hall was a circular arena marked with white lines. It seemed to have a restraining power, so the divine power puppet could not rush out. But the candidate taking the assessment also could not escape out of it, or it would count as an automatic forfeit. 3 stances of bloody battle. Lu Kang dodged frantically, and finally, relying on his long endurance, he seized a split opening. He flicked his purple jade fan, and a purple soft sword actually shot out from it. A fierce aura of bloody battlefield combat spread from his body. The soft sword was actually a divine weapon that could cut through gold and jade, glowing with a mysterious purple light. It struck twice in quick succession, and actually cut off one of the divine power puppet's palms. Sword chi like the Xianxia. Lu Kang roared again, his sword moves flowing like a great river, sweeping toward the divine power puppet's head. He had pushed his potential to the limit. Thud. The soft sword pierced straight between the puppet's brows, but the puppet also threw a fierce punch that hit Liu Kang's body, sending the young marquis flying straight out of the arena. The puppet then collapsed to the ground. You killed the puppet inside the arena, you pass. Congratulations, Liu Kang, you are now an outer sect disciple of our Yuhua immortal sect. A chief assessing officer stepped forward, holding a white talisman in his hand. He waved it slightly, and the talisman turned into a wave of medicinal fragrance that wrapped around Liu Kang's whole body. Only then did Liu Kang climb to his feet, wipe the sweat from his forehead, and look at the bloodstains all over his body, his heart still pounding with fear. Seeing Liu Kang's state, many aristocratic disciples unconsciously stepped back a little. Liu Kang is stronger than me, though not as brave as Fang Tong the Giant Hand. He must be at the 7th level of mortal body, inner strength. That soft sword is really formidable, but I don't have a proper weapon. Fang Han suddenly realized that the divine power puppet was covered in scales, and vulnerable to swords and spears. It was impossible to defeat it with bare hands. Next, a young Taoist dragged the dead divine power puppet and threw it back into the dark gate. Immediately, a crunching, chewing and tearing sound came from inside the gate, making everyone's hair stand on end. Soon after, another pair of blood-red eyes appeared behind the gate, clearly another divine power puppet waiting. Another noble disciple stepped into the center of the hall. The gate opened, the divine power puppet pounced out. The disciple dodged in a hurry, but he was just a step too slow. The puppet grabbed him and was about to tear him apart. "How dare you!" An assessing officer roared, flicking his wrist. A streak of white sword light shot out and directly cut off the puppet's head, saving the noble disciple from danger. Failed, the officer announced the result coldly. Next, one noble disciple after another was eliminated. Most of them suffered injuries of varying severity, some even had arms or legs broken and were carried away for treatment. I quit. I'm not taking it either. It's too dangerous. I'd rather go back and enjoy my wealth and status. Some noble disciples, seeing how dangerous the assessment was, withdrew one after another, saying they would not continue. These nobles can't even slay an outer demon. How can they ever slay their inner demons, fend off heavenly demons, destroy illusory devils, and find their true self in the future? One assessing officer sighed at the scene. I'll go. Just then, the 15 or 16-year-old girl with a sword stepped forward and walked into the center of the arena. It was Princess Hami. She stood there calm and composed, apparently having gained much experience from watching the previous fights. Release the demon. The assessing officer nodded, and another divine power puppet was released. First dance of sword shakes all 4 directions. Second dance of sword chi makes mountains and rivers strong. As Princess Hami swung her sword, her movements were like ink-wash landscape painting, her figure as graceful as a fluttering butterfly, yet every move was extremely sharp. After dozens of exchanges, she suddenly thrust her sword straight into the puppet's throat, and the puppet collapsed immediately. She was the candidate who passed the assessment the most easily. This princess is really strong. Fang Han thought to himself. Then a voice sounded in his ear, Fang Han, next. Fang Han quickly clenched his fists and stepped into the center of the arena. You don't use a weapon? The assessing officer was slightly stunned when he saw Fang Han was empty-handed. I don't have one. Fang Han answered honestly. He was just about to ask to borrow a weapon, but the assessing officer nodded. Good, that takes courage. Release the demon. Boom. The gate flew open, the divine power puppet roared out. A black shadow flashed, and a huge dark fist cut through the air with a howl, smashing straight toward Fang Han's head. Ha! Fang Han had no time to make any other move. He gathered all the strength in his body and threw a punch to meet it head-on. Explosion. The air between the colliding fists exploded. Fang Han's whole body felt as if it had been struck by a heavy hammer, his chest choked, and a mouthful of blood was about to burst out. But at that moment, The 9-aperture golden pellet deep in his heart stirred slightly, its medicinal power spread through his whole body, forcibly suppressing the churning chi and blood, and his whole body felt refreshed again. Huh? The divine power puppet seemed stunned for a moment. It had never expected anyone to meet its punch head-on. But it was an emotionless puppet after all. It did not pause and pounced forward again. I'll tear you apart. Fang Han's rage boiled up at this. He did not dodge either. He threw a hard punch straight at the divine power puppet's waist, while his own chest took another punch from the puppet. Bang! Fang Han was hit so hard he almost flew out of the arena, falling to the ground on his chest. But the divine power puppet was also knocked back several steps. Such reckless brute force. Lu Kang and Princess Hongyi, who had already passed, exchanged a glance when they saw Fang Han fighting this way, both thinking Fang Han was definitely going to die. But what they did not expect was that next, Fang Han sprang to his feet nimbly, leaped like a tiger, and threw another heavy punch straight at the divine power puppet's chest. At the same time, he took a kick from the puppet. In that instant, the man and the puppet were fighting head-on, blow for blow. Fang Han was like an unbeatable war god, possessing endless, inexhaustible stamina. He got more energetic and stronger the longer he fought. Even an Iron Man would have been smashed to pieces by now. The several assessing officers were shocked. What kind of martial art does this Fang Han practice? How can his stamina and bones be this tough? Bang! 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 The divine power puppet hit Fang Han 10 punches, and Fang Han struck back with 10 kicks. The puppet was knocked down again and again, only to get back up, and Fang Han was also knocked down again and again, only to get back up every time. Finally, the divine power puppet seemed to have exhausted all its strength. Fang Han stepped forward, grabbed the puppet's body with his bare hands, and lifted it high up into the air. Roar! This fight had been more satisfying than any Fang Han had ever experienced. A large portion of the 9-aperture golden pellet in his heart melted into his blood and seeped deep into his bone marrow. After lifting the huge divine power puppet high, he let out a ferocious roar and slammed the puppet hard onto the ground. The puppet was beaten to death, worn out alive by him, killed with bare hands. Pass. The several chief assessing officers exchanged glances, unable to hide the shock in their hearts. Brother, that's amazing. When Fang Han walked out of the arena, young Marquis Lu Kang gave him a thumbs up. Very impressive. Princess Hongyi looked at Fang Han as if he were a monster,